Pepper says, are you ready to declutter another section of this hoarded basement? I know I am.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Hoarder's Heart. For today, we are back in this basement, decluttering the section right next to me. It is another pile of churned things, items that were not organized into a label bin, and it's just another cleanup crew. We'll be decluttering a lot of stuff today. But what I really want to talk about is how to detach your emotions to your stuff and releasing that trauma. For a majority of my life, I was a level 4 hoarder. I held on to everything with a tight grip. At a very young age, I noticed that I started to transfer my self-worth and self-identity from myself, the body, the soul, into external items. And the reason why I started doing that at such a young age is because I was horribly bullied in middle school from 6th to 8th grade. And when I was a teenager, I was severely abused by an ex-boyfriend. So I had consistently had these external sources saying that I was ugly and I was fat and I was disgusting and I was all these awful things. And I internalized it. I never told anyone. I kept it a secret. And to cope with it as a kid, I ran home and I escaped into my room where I was surrounded by all of my beautiful things. And to deal with that internal pain, I found refuge and security and safety in all of my artwork, in all of my drawings, in all of my stuffed animals and my clothes, because I loved brightly, obnoxious colored clothes. It was the 90s. We had a lot of hot pinks and teals and all kinds of stuff. And it made me so happy that I put all of my self-worth and identity into the external items because it hurt me too much to look at myself, to deal with that pain, because I started believing my bullies and my abuser in what they were saying, because it was all very similar. So I believed it, and I took all of my self-worth and my self-love and transfused all that energy into all of my items. And I did that for years upon years. It was how I coped. I created it as my own coping mechanism to regulate my nervous system. I had no idea that for my entire life, that's what I was doing. So when it came time to ever try to declutter anything, it would hurt me so bad. I would feel physical pain when I was doing it. Why? Because I felt like I was throwing myself in the trash and I was revalidating what all those awful people had said to me and had done to me. I am throwing myself away, and that's why I held on to everything for years. When you see me decluttering, you are seeing decades worth of stuff that was never discarded. It was just hoarded in a bin, in a tub, and thrown into a storage locker, a basement, an attic, anywhere. That's why there's so much stuff. But we come to the question of, how do we start to separate that emotion from the items? How do we start to detach all those energetic threads and self-identity and self-worth from the item so that we can finally look at the item and make a logical decision of, I have not used this since 2009. I can now freely let this go without any type of emotional reaction. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. How to detach that emotion, how to release that trauma so that you have no regrets when you declutter anything.
Now, a lot of this stuff has been churned items that we're getting rid of right away. That's why the majority of this is going to be a voiceover. Now, when I talk about detaching emotions from the stuff, I'm going to be talking about it with releasing trauma, because a lot of reasons why I held on to the stuff was because of past trauma. Now, I've been saying that beneath every behavior, there is a feeling. And beneath every feeling, there is a need. Meet the need. To meet the need, we gotta dive a little deeper into our own self-awareness. When I pick up an item that I haven't used in years, but I feel an emotional pull to still hold on to it, I start to focus my attention on the feeling. A lot of times, the feelings are the residue of a bad past experience, which we call the pain body. The pain body is the invisible entity of pain that accumulates throughout your life. Now, some of these concepts are from the book, The Power of Now. And I'm integrating some of its knowledge into my hoarding behaviors and how I'm decluttering, because I realized I've been doing it subconsciously without even knowing it over the past few years. So when I pick up an item and I'm feeling emotionally triggered by the thought of letting it go, I allow myself to feel it, to accept that it's old feelings from the past, and that's all that it is. I try not to attach new thoughts to the feeling, because in this present moment, I am safe right now. There is no trauma occurring in the present now. Only the residue of that past feeling. I don't judge the feeling or analyze it, but I especially do not make an identity for myself out of it. An example would be starting a thought process of, oh, that's right, I remember why I held on to it, because I was so hurt in the past, and this is a coping mechanism. And you know what? I haven't changed because this feeling is showing up again. I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. See how you're kind of recreating a new identity in the present moment based on something that happened in your past. All I'm doing is being aware of the present moment, witnessing the feelings that are occurring. The present me is a successful recovering hoarder and is observing the pain and emotions from the past me as a 12-year-old girl and a 17-year-old girl when the trauma actually occurred. In therapy, this is referred to the present you looking back at your inner child. And in the book, The Power of Now, it's referring to the observer looking at the pain body. The reason why this is so important to recognize that you're the observer looking at the emotions of the past is because this is the point where you separate the present you to those painful past experiences. The past isn't happening right now. It doesn't exist in this very moment. You are detaching yourself from that pain body because that's not who you are in this present moment. You're only observing it. Now, this concept seems simple enough to be the observer of those past emotions, but I definitely experienced some resistance to feeling the pain of the past. I had suppressed those emotions for so long because I didn't want to feel them, but by doing so, I allowed it to become part of my identity. I was a victim of an abuser. I was bullied. I am a hoarder. I am unorganized. All those feelings became my self-identity. And it was so much easier to suppress that pain than to take a leap of faith into the unknown and risk losing that familiar, unhappy self. And it's the same thing with all of my belongings, where I transferred my self-worth and my self-identity into the objects. The clutter, the hoard, is a familiar pattern. It's a familiar environment with a predictable outcome of making me feel safe. It's taken me some time to learn this process. It's been baby steps all along the way, but I can tell you that by observing my resistance, my feelings, my needs, my pain body, and bringing it to the conscious, by talking about it and sharing it with all of you as the storyteller, as the observer of the past, that those emotions started to disappear. And as that pain started to disappear, so did the attachments to all those belongings. They started to disappear as well, because I did not need it as a coping mechanism anymore. Suddenly, things that had a tight grip I felt absolutely nothing. I was fully detached. I could easily make a logical decision to let the item go. It almost felt weird to me that I didn't feel anything towards it anymore. My hope is that this helps you become the observer of the present now as well. This is the power of the now, being in your own conscious presence. The moment you become the observer of the now, witnessing the old emotions of the past that no longer exist, this is where you sever the emotional ties. That's why a lot of times in therapy, they say to take the present you and look back to the inner child, to the inner 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old who was experiencing the trauma, and tell her that that is no longer happening. You are safe. You are happy. You are joyful in the present now. And you watch those emotions of that inner child play out and release them with no judgment or new stories attached to it. You just let it all go. And please allow yourself the time and the grace that you need to start this process. That's why I always started with baby step decluttering. It was because it was what I could handle at the time. And as you practice this when you're decluttering, becoming the observer of the feelings being triggered within, creating a safe space for you to witness these emotions of the pain body, whether it's by yourself, a therapist, a support group, a trusted family member or friend. Allow yourself to start, even if it's witnessing the resistance within yourself to start the process. That is your starting point. And I never realized that I was doing this subconsciously the whole time. And I know that a whole bunch of you have probably even been doing it too. And now we have the words and tools to be aware of this process so that we can be the observer and release the remnants of the pain of your past. And soon you'll see that those emotional attachments to external items will dissolve and it'll become easier to declutter your house. And my hope and my prayer is that this video motivated and encouraged you to clean, declutter, and let go of something in your home today too.